the other question was, what are the checks and balances to ensure that the negative impacts on the SMB space are appropriately mitigated? So just to clarify, the first question says, won't OIRA also look at this problem? So OIRA is the Office of Information and Regulatory Affairs. They are a group of people within the Office of Management and Budget, through whom all agencies must send their rules for regulatory review during the rulemaking process. So the review of the rule, of the analyses that all of the reports and all of the analysis that the agencies have to do for their rule is reviewed by this group within OMB during the rulemaking process. And to your point, of the many, many, many things that you have to go through during rulemaking, one of the biggest things that you have to go through is of these analyses that look at your impact on small entities, right? If it's determined that your regulation will have an impact on a significant number of small entities, you have to do an analysis under the Regulatory Flexibility Act, typically, which produces something called a regulatory impact analysis. Not always. And it is specifically an analysis that has to be done for how you will impact small businesses. What trade-offs are there for impacting small businesses? What alternatives are there to having this impact on small business? Why are you picking one alternative over the other? Why are you making this decision? You're effectively, and this is back to that point about how rules are done, essentially done before they're published for public comment. They are preempting questions like, what about small businesses? What about these impacts on small businesses, right? So if you go back through old rules in the Federal Register and you Control F for regulatory flexibility, it will take you to the section where they go through their analysis of the impact on small businesses and why or why not they went with certain alternatives. So yes, there will be significant discussion about the impact on small businesses. But what we've said before is, because the CMMC program is simply an assessment program assessing requirements that are already required of small businesses, but that people weren't aware of their requirements, a lot of people equate the cost, burden, and impact of implementing requirements from other rules with complying with the CMMC program itself. The requirements in 800-171, the requirements in DFARS 7012 are not part of the CMMC program. The CMMC program is showing up to verify that you have implemented those requirements, which are the outputs of other rules. We go into this in the video that we put out. There's a great infographic that we have in the video that shows how all of these rules and outputs of rules are interrelated. So yeah, there will be a significant amount of analysis. There has been a significant amount of analysis conducted in the 2013 rule, the 2016 rule, and the 2020 rule under the regulatory flexibility section about the impact on small businesses. And so because we have this long-standing series of answers from the government about why they're making the trade-offs that they're making. And yes, there will be impacts on small businesses. And yes, we considered many alternatives and we rejected them all for good reason. We know what the 2023 CMMC rule will say, right? Okay. Because it is carrying forward this exact thing. At CS2DC in July of last year, I gave a whole presentation on this, which was literally just going back through previous rules. And I had a pop quiz, which I think we can link to, where I put I put a public comment from an older rule up on the screen. And I said, what year was this comment submitted? Right? I remember that. Because it sounds like what everybody's saying today, right? What about small business? And what about this? And what about that? It's a comment from 2013, right? And so we know what the answers are going to be. So yes, they're going to look at it, but I think a lot of people are going to be surprised and upset when they get the copy paste answer from previous rules because they've already done that analysis. The only difference here is the cost of assessment, which, is not an insignificant amount of money, but it is not the total cost that people talk about when they talk about complying with CMMC, because they take the cost of implementing the requirements and maintaining the requirements and the cost of assessment, and they lump it together. That's not what the rule is going to look at. It's just going to look at the assessment mechanism not the requirements.
Yeah, and unfortunately, the situation for a lot of organizations that are going to have to comply with the CMMC rule, the results of the CMMC rule, is that they're going to have to combine those costs, right? Because they haven't done very much.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so you see, and you said this before, you say, the financial burden that's been created by CMMC. Show me what part of this financial burden is separate from the technical requirements, like you just explained.
And this is not to lessen the fact that people have a significant amount of money that they're going to need to spend and a significant amount of time and effort that they need to dedicate to implementing their requirements in 171. The reason I bring it up so much is that it's critical to understand the difference between the CMMC assessment program and your existing requirements under DFARS contract clauses that are in black and white, is because if you are expecting that your public comment on the upcoming rule about the cost of the requirements is going to somehow change the CMMC program, you are mistaken, because it is not the subject of the rule. This is why Jesse Salazar said that out of the 850 comments that they got on the 2020 rule, half of them were not relevant, because half of them were about the requirements, not about the assessment program.